It feels to me that the first season of the GSL Code S just ended. I mean, as of me casting this particular series, it's been about a week, and I've had these replays for a few days already, and I do have a couple weeks of head start on YouTube right now too, so by the time you're watching this on YouTube, it was already... Anyways, times are confusing, nobody knows what's going on, but what I've got for you today is a best of 3 series of Terran vs Zerg from the GSL qualifications for the second season of the year. We are doing seasons back to back after not having any GSL tournaments for months. Spawning right here in the top right corner in game number 1, playing with the blue Terran pieces, we have none other than Byun. His opponent, down in the bottom left. That's actually very nice. He's been joined by Dark, spinning around on the main hatchery. Dark right now off to the military. This is the Mando that has been at least copying some of his strategies. He's been playing some crazy and wild games. We're looking at Shin's main base. I always like this, man. Whenever pro gamers have decals of other pro gamers spinning around on their main. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but, you know, it shows a bit of respect at the very least. We're not going to see Dark for about a year and a half. Whenever he returns, maybe we'll have, I don't know, more tournaments with him in it, but at least for now, it'll be up to Shin to try and continue that crazy strategy that Dark has been very, very fond of. Although, in the early game of TVZ, other than, I guess, a Roach Ravager all-in with like a Ling Flood, which admittedly is something that Rogue has been playing once again, but most of the time, you don't really have a ton of wiggle room. No proxy hatcheries, no shenanigans for now. It is going to be a pretty quick spawning pool, though, here for Shin, as he does decide to rush 6 Zerglings straight across the map. Dark might not be in the game, but he is going to be here in spirit. Spirit is also not in the game, but we do have a Terran player named Byun. It gets very confusing. Okay, now, this is a Reaper opener for the Terran player, but he did not go for an SCV scout to lead that Reaper across the map. Actually, what exactly was this build here for Shin? Can I just... Hold up, I'm going to go back all the way to the start. So we were at about 2.5 minutes. We went for a good old extractor trick. Cancelled. It's a 15 hatch on the low ground. Ah. So this has been a 15 hatch, 15 pool. So all of this is before the first Overlord. Look. So this is 15 hatch, 15 pool, extractor tricks all around to get 1 additional drone out. And then finally do we go for the second OV. A very odd beginning here actually for Shin. And maybe he is channeling that... that portrait spinning around on his main hatch. Very funky. Okay, let's go back to regular game speed. Because you wouldn't expect right now, as the Terran player, that there's already Zerglings in your, well, natural expansion and now your main base too. That Reaper is going to have to immediately make a beeline back home. It is absolutely critical for Byun to finish this command center though. Not just because of course, the fact that he needs to continue his economy, but also because he needs to not hit a supply block. Luckily for the Terran, though, he did make a bunch of Marines on the back of this. And that does mean he's going to be able to push this away. But sometimes Terrans get very greedy, right? Sometimes we see Terran players skipping the SCV scout, like what Byun did in this particular match. And then they also go for a single Reaper straight into a reactor. And if you play that style, or if you maybe just go for a single Marine, you're actually in a world of trouble. So Byun escapes here. Doesn't really take a whole lot of damage. But that could have been an absolute disaster, and it's certainly going to set the tone for the rest of these games, because there's no denying that this is something you have to keep in the back of your mind. I would not be surprised in game number 2 if Byun decides to go for a quick SCV scout, or maybe if he opens up like, I don't know, triple or double Rex, right? Just to be safe against everything. So to clarify, the idea behind an extractor trick, right? So when you're a Zerg player, and say in the early game, you go up to like, I don't know, your supply cap, right? You could do it right now as well at 52 out of 52. You can build an extractor, spend 1 larva, cancel the extractor. That allows you to get the drone back that you are, well, building the structure with. And then you are above the supply cap. It is a neat little way to squeeze out 1 additional drone. Obviously at 52 supply, it doesn't really do that much, but... when you only have about a dozen workers, it allows you to just get a slight economic boost. It's a trick that Zerg players have been doing for years, but we don't really see it, well, being used as aggressively as what Shin was doing just now. Because obviously, even though you can squeeze out an extra drone, you You don't get full resources back when you cancel a structure, so you have to take a little bit of an economic hit. And if you do it 3 times, which is what Shin ended up doing, well, you basically also give up a pretty significant portion. It's about a half drone's worth that you end up losing there. So you mostly just gained the timing and maybe a little bit of confusion from the opponent. All right. Well, we can tell this is Byun. Byun is the only Terran player at this level that always goes armor upgrades first. It's been proven about 1,000,000 times that armor upgrade first is actually inferior to attack upgrade first. He actually really needs to start up the second one. Maybe he clicked it and he forgot about it now. That's actually super awkward. If you can only afford one of the 2 upgrades as Terran, you should always go attack. Byun always goes armor first. He's very good at the game and he rarely uses, he rarely loses TVZ, but especially as an aggressive player, the attack upgrade is critical. And even though he didn't build it immediately, he didn't start researching it right away, he did start it up just now. Double Baneling Nest. Man, this is a very odd game so far. Did you know that when you have 2 Baneling Nests, the research time of centrifugal hooks is halved? It's a fact not a lot of people know, because it's a lie. There's no advantage. There's 0 advantage to having a second Baneling Nest. Some people probably believe me though, so hey, shout out to you. If I just say something in a very convincing tone, I'm pretty sure I can tell you anything, and someone will believe it. Most people probably called me out immediately, but anyways. Baneling speed is going to be researched in one of the 2 Baneling Nests. At the very least, if Byun hits the main base with a drop and then kills one of the Baneling Nests, Shin will have a second Baneling Nest. I don't know what the advantage of that would be, but at least he saved himself 50 gas by spending it right now, rather than later. Even though it's pretty uncommon to lose your Baneling Nest. Alright, so, additional barracks coming up. Maybe this is just the pro gamers trying to prove to us that they are in fact human. Something that is easily forgotten sometimes. Combat Shields is finishing up. Double upgrades will be available as well in a moment. Shin has already gone though for another hatchery all the way at the bottom of the map. Hydralisk then right now on the back of this too. And despite the pretty funky start, we've got a very conventional follow-up. So Shin is focusing heavy on creep spread and just building up his eco. Whereas on the other side of the map, Byun just started up a second factory. He's gone into the armory. He should be going into a 4th command center as well in just a moment. Everything here is looking like a very normal macro game where both players are basically going to try and deal some damage to one another. Maybe with Zergling run-bys, Baneling roll-bys, that sort of thing. And Byun is going to maybe do some dropping and some pushing like this. But ultimately, both players are just building up to try and take as many of the map's resources as possible. That is to be said, though, that, well, assuming you don't take critical amounts of damage, right? Like, if you take a lot of damage, say you lose a hatchery for free, then at some point, yeah, you might actually find yourself in a position where the game will suddenly end. 4th Command Center, though, was built, and in the meantime, while Byun was working away at that hatchery, yeah, the Zerg set up a massive surround, and despite tanking quite a bit of damage on the hatch, as long as the hatchery is above 0, that is all that Shin really cares about. Nice little bit of creep clearing, though, here at the bottom of the map. Shin is currently sitting at 71 workers. He'll probably make another round in a moment, but he needs to be careful that, well, if the Terran player comes by and accidentally sneezes onto the hatchery, it might lose. Okay, so Fort CC is now just about to wrap up. We have barracks 6, 7, and 8 right now. We'll probably see a Ghost Academy in a moment. Although, against a full Hydraling Bane army, you don't really need it. Byun could scan the main base, for example, and figure out, hey, I'm probably fine. Like, this is still lair tech. The fact that this is still lair tech is actually a bit funky. Normally, you would expect a hive to start up, but Shin is, yeah, just sitting on this mid-game army for the time being. So for the longest time, right, what we've seen from Zerg players is a rush straight to Lurkers, straight towards Vipers, straight towards the Adrenal Glands upgrade, just to, like, build up their eco and stay safe in the process. Now we finally go into an infestation pit, using those additional resources, I suppose, just to not really take any damage. Yeah. So even though Shin is looking pretty normal, right? If you zoom out and you just kind of look at the game, everything that Shin is doing is looking quite normal, but he's actually playing this a little differently than what we would normally see from the top level players. This is a pretty late lurker den. The hive is not going to start up until like 10 minutes. We've been seeing hives at like 6.5. Okay. Well, it does mean that Byun is dealing with more Zerg right now than what he's used to. Simultaneously, though, it also means that Shin is not going to be able to get those lurkers out anytime soon. So a 2-2 timing attack, which is what Byun is ultimately going for here, as he does lose the Metavex on the left side. I mean, this can really hurt. Normally, Zergs will have lurkers to deal with this, but Byun is also wondering, where in the world are the Vipers? Where are those lurkers? Like, what is going on here? He should really scan the main base to see the timing. Yeah, I guess he doesn't really care that much. Yeah, he just doesn't really care that much. So, we have another command center building. Just finished up. Looks like we're gonna go straight into a planetary fortress. Byun is slowly moving forward over here at the bottom. There are some Widow Mines set up, though. That one is gonna deal some damage, but there's plenty of Ling Bane on the back of this. Beautiful stutter step micro, though, from Micro Jackson. He does end up losing a bunch of Marines, but still gets very effective trades. Keep in mind that minerals at this point in the game are not really that important for the Terran. You may as well dump them onto some additional command centers, and that's exactly what he does right now. This command center is not yet morphing in. Planetary will now be coming up. That siege tank will fall, but ultimately this is all looking pretty good. So look at this. We have lurkers out, but without lurker upgrades. Normally, this is the absolute top priority and why we see Zerg players going up towards the Hive so quick. Lurkers without their ranged upgrade, without their burrow upgrade, they're just not as good. But Shin is playing this very passively, very laid back. Couple of attempted Ling run-bys, sure. Couple of Banelings as well, sure, but really nothing critical. This man is getting comfortable. Maybe a little bit too comfortable. Because Byun is a bit of a late-game monster. And the Ghost production has now begun. Not rushing it out. Not getting those units immediately right at the earliest possible moment. But Byun is happy to build up the additional command centers right now. General goal for Terrans at this point is to build up about a dozen of those bad boys. When you get up to 2 digits worth of orbital commands, you're basically a rich Terran. The Iron Bank. Well, let's see though. We need some stutter step control once more. I mean, you can roll a dozen Banelings into a planetary, maybe 2 dozen. But that is still a good trait there for the Terran ultimately. What about the fight up north? Okay. Shin has been building up so much economy that he can actually blow up 2 planetary fortresses at the same time in opposite sections of the map. That was expensive though. I mean, when you think about it, it takes a lot of Banelings and Zerglings to kill a planetary. And the planetary isn't free by any stretch, but it's mostly minerals. Whereas a Baneling, I mean, it is obviously a unit that trades pretty well, but it's never really particularly cost effective. The thing with Lurker, or with Banelings rather, is that they're 50 minerals and 25 gas each. It's a lot. Like, they're not a cheap unit. You can make a lot of them right now. Shin has 90 workers, so he's got a lot of income, but when you're double trading against planetaries like that, you're gonna run out of money real quick. But I guess the idea, right, is to take these really cost-ineffective trades and then to, well, continuously hit the opponent in the face. Keep on taking out their outer expansions, and at some point, the resources on the Terran side of the map will run out. Building armor coming up. I love it. This is the high-sec auto-tracking, which is the ranged upgrade for planetary fortresses too. Byun has recognized, though, the situation that he's in, so he is just preparing more command centers to try and make sure that he is not gonna have any issues replacing the ones that might go down. Did we just have an EMP there on Hydraling Bane? You'll love to see it. Doesn't do anything, but it looks cool. At least the at least the overseers here are now without energy. Okay. We've got a fusion core coming up. Ghost personal cloaking also coming up. Lurkers are going to be replacing Banelings at least on the left side of the map, but more Banelings are coming up in the far bottom right. Shin is starting to pile on the pressure right now too. Not just using those lurkers, but also Nidus worms, but Byun is defending everything brilliantly. Yeah, resources lost-wise, look at this. This is what is telling us the full story. Sure, Shin may be an aggressive man. Sure, this may look like a difficult game for Byun, but he is dealing with everything really, really well. Getting a near 2-to-1 trait on his resources so far. Picks up, gets on out of there. We have some Nidus Worms here just to try and allow those Zerg units to go quickly from the bottom right towards the top left. One asterisk, though, next to this is that Shin is not going to run out of cash anytime soon. And Byun, as weird as it sounds, in like 5 to 10 minutes, he will start running out of mineral fields to mine. He's still good for like another 10. But which bases do you take next? He's got the low ground one. He's got this one still as well that is, well, mostly fresh. But a lot of those expansions that we're running into right now are going to be more and more difficult to acquire. So you may have all the command centers in the world, and technically the potential to drop down a dozen mules all in one go. But if there's no mineral fields that you can reasonably mine, it can become very tricky. And we do occasionally see Terran players actually over-making command centers. I think Terrans, though, have been learning from that over the last, well, year or two, because they've been playing this strategy very, very frequently. He's gonna go up to about a dozen CCs now. I think that's probably the upper limit. Energy on orbital commands is awesome, but if you have too much, or at least you spend too much right now, you might not be able to, well, actually get value out of it. Shin is effectively trying to create like a soft contain, right? A soft contain by running bodies of Zerglings and Banelings into the command centers on the outside. We may not have mass overseer, but a bunch of changelings have slipped through the cracks. Orbital command though, or orbital command liberators now coming up. This is super annoying because at the same time, while Terran is preoccupied dealing with those units at the main base, he's also forced to deal with these Ling Bane run-bys, although I think we should have seen some of the Banelings go into the planetary fortress. Even though Byun was distracted, Shin also distracted by his own actions. +1 air weapons coming up. We have the medevac improvement coming up too. Liberator production 4 at a time. An additional reactor coming up too, so Byun really wants to be building up the Liberator count. We have now 0 Marines. So after seeing the situation with the Banelings and the Lurkers, Byun has decided that he no longer needs Marines. +1 air weapons coming up for Shin. I think this is mostly for a Corruptor potential. So a Corruptor switch would be good against the Liberators. Hydras are not really going to cut it. It is important right now, though, for Byun to start working on some of those bases, or at the very least try to acquire more of his own units. Then again, even though Marauders are a decent choice here, Zerglings will still be able to make very quick work of them. And Shin is just trying to swarm over the opponent. Byun can't really catch a break. Like, every time he tries to set up a new base, there is another wave of Ling Bane moving in. And these are some of the least cost-effective trades that Zerg players can ever make. But he doesn't care. This is not a Zerg player that cares about the situation at all. He is here to take trades, whatever the cost. He still has 5,000 or so resources in the bank. He can quickly replenish it. Another Nidus Worm inside of the main base. This one does get denied. Okay. So the reason Byun is going Liberators is because he needs something that's more sustainable. He needs to slow down the Zerg in whatever way possible. Obviously, Liberators aren't great when it comes to, well, for example, dealing with Ling Bane. Mostly just because Zergling Baneling comes in such large numbers and Liberators attack relatively slowly. But at the very least, it makes it easier, right? The more you get, if you have a dozen Liberators sieged up on a planetary fortress, you will take even more cost-effective trades than just the Lings and the Banes trading one for one. Yeah, and those Liberation Circles are looking really strong. He now has a ton of them already. 6 of them are just about to join the battlefield. Byun has been taking a lot of SCV losses, but most importantly, not really replacing the lost workers. Another Nidus Worm going up north. +2 air coming up for Shin. All whilst not making a single flying unit thus far. Other than Overseers and Overlords, but they can't attack. Oh, look at this. Look at this! 11 Overseers coming up. Shin taking a page out of Rogue's book. It is funky to see that many Overseers, but the idea is to basically just flood the map with Changelings, and then some of them are going to allow you to pop up Nidus Worms all over the Terran bases. I wonder, though, if it's a little too late. Shin doesn't have a ton of resources anymore. I mean, mostly gas is the limitation. Liberator count is already looking spicy. Oh my god. I'm almost afraid to open up the resources lost tab. We'll do it after this engagement, okay? Because this is so effective for the Terran player. He's hardly losing anything. I mean, yeah, he lost SCVs. Yeah, he lost the command center, but... Okay. We're at about, what is this, like 17,000? Math while recording is dangerous. We have a significant resource advantage here for the Terran player. Shin is mining, though, and he's mining an awful lot. Lost workers are being replaced with more attacking units. Mules, of course, do not cost supply, so if Byun needs resources in a pinch, he can just drop those down. Okay. Overseer trying to zoom by. It's not gonna have an easy time, though. One Knight is where him gets popped out. But in the meantime, the ranged research for those missile turrets is done, as we saw quite a while ago. So he's not gonna be able to let that sneak into the main base. Byun is desperately trying to take another expansion, though. And he needs one. He needs one really soon. He still is mining for the time being. Oh. What about this fight over here? Corruptors now are joining the battlefield too, by the way. But look at the gas bank for Shin. Shin may have had all the resources in the world, but he has been spending gas like he's never going to run out. Oh, there are infestors now in the mix. Fungal growth is huge. One fungal growth and then allowing the links to catch up could change everything really, really quickly. Yeah, you hear stories about this every once in a while, right? That, like, lottery winners, they run out of money within, like, a couple years. I don't really know exactly what the numbers are like, but supposedly a lot of folks that win millions in the lottery, they run out of cash within a certain amount of time again. And Shin has been living a very lavish life. He's been spending gas like he's never gonna run out. More of it will be used over here to take down that planetary too. He needs to be careful, though, because this is not free. Still, his idea is to have the Terran player run out of resources before he does. And so far, if we look at the mineral bank of Byun, he really doesn't have that much. He's still maxed out for now, but this is going to come down to, well, the absolute final minerals at this rate. The longer that this goes on, the better it should be in my mind for Byun. But he really needs to be able to secure more expansions. Banger game number 1, by the way, of this particular series. Especially the weird start. After that weird beginning, I kind of figured we were going to go for hyper-aggressive builds. Not quite the case. Okay. Byun may have actually been able to, yep, find an angle now to take down that expansion. That's big. Shin has some mineral fields still available, but yeah, loses another expansion as well, all the way in the top. Some snipes being used here onto the Corruptors. Corruptors can finish off 1 or 2 Liberators before dying, but plus the air coming up. Byun has been maneuvering his way slowly but surely. But finally, he can start mining minerals very effectively again. Actually, looking at his mineral bank, I think he may have already had a wave of mules previously. He was down to, well, triple digits worth of minerals there for a second. Oh, no. Dude, stop this. We really don't need 3 additional command centers at this point in time. Fungal growth does go down. Okay, the Zerg army is flooding in. Widow mines are dealing damage to Overseers, not really where they need to go. Banelings are still breaking through all of this, though. Marauders, of course, cannot shoot up. Vikings are a pretty decent option, but not ideal against this sort of thing. The Corruptors are still alive. They don't really care so much about the missile turrets. These are well-upgraded Corruptors, and what was looking like a garbage engagement at first is turning out into, yeah, it's turning out to be pretty reasonable, I think, for Shin, considering he just took down the majority of those flying units. 16 Liberators, 10 Vikings have died in total in this game. Here's the reinforcements once more coming up. Fungal growth is available. Those mules have once more gone back down. Fungal growth on mules, sure. You don't see that every day. That's another big wave of energy down the drain there for the Terran player. Another scan gets used. He can land the CC once more. Okay. Both players are running dry. Byun is, well, down to double digits worth of minerals. SHIN likewise has no gas. It means that SHIN can make a ton of Zerglings though, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's once more adding about 100 into his army composition. Problem here for SHIN is that he is not really able to sustain this for a whole lot longer. He really needs another base soon. It looks to me though that he is hoping he can win this game by engaging onto this expansion over and over and over again. No missile turrets this time around. Very ambitious Infestor tried to get a fungal within like 7 liberation circles. I think this is good though for Byun. Byun has a solid backbone of, well, ghosts and marauders. Mixing in a few more marines again too, which I do agree with. Despite the mineral bank being pretty low. I think having some marines in the mix to make sure that the corruptors can't jump too far. Really, really valuable. And I wouldn't mind seeing Byun actually take this expansion now. Even though the Zerg has been mining it for a bit already. It is gonna shift the focus of SHIN to that base instead. Byun's being aggressive, denying this base over and over and over again. He's effectively making the 50% goal, right? He's trying to mine his half of the map by making sure that these two bases are not mineable. I mean, we have another attempt here for SHIN. But if he can deny that altogether, it would be big. It just makes the 50% goal easier to reach. 50,000 minerals have been lost by the Zerg player now. Make it 51. Well, we're coming up on 52 at this rate. Let's see. Can he actually close it out, though? Difficult game to read, of course, for the both of them, right? Like, if you're Byun at this point, do you think that Zerg has been bled dry? If you're SHIN, do you assume that Terran is going to be running out soon? Well, I guess not. Since this expansion has now been mining for a good couple minutes, SHIN is well aware of the strength of the mule. He's killed lots of SCVs. Oh, I love those Widow Mines on burrowing. Very strong moves right there from the South Korean Terran. Just trying to slow down the advancement. He is inviting the Zerg into this choke point. Widow Mines, Liberators. I don't think you can really go in there. And that means that this expansion is now well secured. SHIN has given up on the aggression. But what exactly can he do as an alternative? I'm not so sure that he really has an option. Right now it is Byun being the aggressor. I don't actually think that Byun needs to be aggressive. He probably agrees. Mismicros a couple of those units too far forward. I don't think Byun really needs to be aggressive, but if he can use a couple Marines and Marauders, a couple Ghosts to deal some damage to a Hedge and kill it, I think you just back up. I think you back up and you AFK behind your beautiful mineral walls. Maybe try to secure the base in the bottom right, but there is about zero reason to step onto creep now. Okay, he's gonna step onto creep. It's dangerous. Yeah, SHIN realizes that this is his opportunity to strike. A lot of Widow Mines in the mix, though. Corruptors are going to be able to take care of a lot of the flying units within seconds. Ghosts are now dying as well to a lot of Ling Bane. Shindo has mostly just got minerals on the back of this. Some additional Banelings, I guess, are an option. SCVs are dying once again. No Corruptors, or sorry, no Overseers available. So the Ghost Cloaking here actually saves some of the units, but that was far and away the best fight that SHIN could have ever taken. And it's mostly because part of that engagement took place on creep. Byun had no business being on creep. There was zero reason for him to be onto creep. Now the supply count is about 60 lower than it's, well, really supposed to be. He has a lot of money in the bank, though. And Byun is now forced to go all the way back down to the lonely, good old Marine tech. It's how he started this game. It's how he's gonna have to end this game. SHIN is denying this expansion again. No way, dude. Is SHIN actually clutching this? This is such a tricky match for the Zerg player, and I feel like we have seen dozens of examples over the last couple of months where Zergs lose from this exact spot. But that was the perfect engagement for SHIN. He's remaking a hatchery. There's only a few hundred minerals remaining here. He's still mining in the top left. The other expansions, though, are all drying up. With this base no longer available for Byun, He is gonna run out of resources real soon as well, but lucky for him, he did drop a big round of mules there several times, so he still has about 2,000 resources in the bank. What a game, number one. Yeah, Byun just needs to chill. He just needs to, like, take a breather. He can't deny this expansion over here, but I think that's about as far as he should reach. Anytime you step onto creep, Zerg is just in such a massive, like, advantage, right? Like, you just get more speed, you just get more vision. Those are difficult criteria in a StarCraft game to really quantify, right? You can never really say how much of an advantage speed and vision really grants, but it's very clear that it's a lot. Greater Spire coming up right now for Shin. Shin wants to go Brute Lords from here. Well, I find it an ambitious play. He's once more moving in, though, because Terran has tried to secure that expansion one more time. I'm getting nerd chills. This is extremely close. It all comes down to the final minerals. This expansion over here, apparently both players have entirely forgotten about it. I think Byun could have tried to make a move. Byun, by the way, now at only 26 workers, meaning that his army is absolutely massive. He has a ton of supply available for army units. Decent fungal growth there. Decent Widowmine hit as well. Yeah, Byun's army, look at all of this, man. It's looking massive. Even though he's coming from a gigantic deficit, he's building back up. And I like that Byun did not feel the urgency to be aggressive there again. He's just allowed himself a bit of time to rebuild his, well, his army. And even though this may not be his preferred unit composition anymore, he doesn't have the gas to go for Liberators like he was earlier. Marines are still pretty darn good. You know what they aren't good at, though? Fighting Brute Lord Infestor. And that is what, well, Shin is aiming for right now. Byun sees them being morphed in, immediately spends what little money he has on additional ghosts. What a game. 9 Brute Lords. Shin is effectively using his last money on that, although there is still like 4,000 gas or so in these extractors. He may not have a lot of minerals, but he can actually sustain his army for like a one last-ditch effort. He's bringing the spore crawlers, I think, that he made earlier across the map. Finally, Byun decides to once more set his attention to the top left-hand corner. Cleans up 12 workers. I actually think Shin should not be remaking those. Seems kind of pointless. Okay. Brute Lord Infestor versus Marine Marauder Ghost. Ghosts are good, of course, in a straight-up engagement, but it's not so easily done. How many Infestors do we have? Just 5. I think we'll see some more gas expenditure on that in a moment. Fungal. Okay, good splitty right there, though, by Byun. Mitigating a lot of the damage. Bit of a move command on the Infestors, and I think 2 or 3 of them got, well, EMP'd unnecessarily. Marines and Marauders trying to push down the ramp. They did deny the hatch. 2 more Brutes coming up. I don't think he's killed, yeah, too many in that previous engagement, but in total, 6 still went down. Actually, he did snipe quite a few more than I realized. I think Shin actually butchered that fight a little bit, though. He could have certainly gotten... he should have had more value there. Byun starts up a command center there. Are you insane, dude? We can just fly one of the old ones instead. Okay, Fungal. Fungal would be massive right now. He's hunting for it, but the Lings and the Banes are making this Terran army run back up all the way to a corner. A lot of the Banes, though, have now caught up with those Terran units on the ground, and a ton of the Terran units are forced to evacuate inside of the Medivacs. Shin takes a much better fight than he ever was supposed to. Byun, for some reason, decided to micro his units into a corner, probably anticipating that that Zerg army would back off at some point, but Shin was not gonna let his foot off the gas. He needs a little bit more money. Finally, he breaks the 300 minerals, or 275 now, and builds a hatchery in the far bottom right. Neither player has resources. Ay. I can't believe we haven't seen the command center over here, though. Like, this is such an obvious location that I think Byun could have been squeezing out at least a couple times. He's got orbital commands. He still has 5 of them. May as well move them in that spot. Do we have energy, though, for a fungal growth still? It does look like it, but he needs to be careful. Actually, no. He does not have energy for a fungal growth. Ooh, is there just enough firepower, though, with the Zerg units left over and the Brutelings throwing their children onto the ground? 10 additional drones have fallen. Byun right now has his eyes set on, well, the price, right? He wants to shut down the infestors. He wants to shut down the brute lords. He does not care about that hatchery in the far bottom right. He needs to get the job done very, very soon. Another brute lord. Oh, missed fungal growth. Ooh. Okay, nice fungal there to at least soften up some of these units, but the Medivacs are putting in a ton of work. We have only 2 broods remaining. 3 Hydralisks remain on the ground as well. And finally, the infestors have accumulated enough energy for more fungal growths, but I think Byun is getting it done with the scrappiest army he could possibly have. It's 3 Marauders and 8 Marines, man. It's nothing. GG. What a phenomenal game of StarCraft. Ay, 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 ay. Incredible. Now we find ourselves on Ultra Love. Yeah, that game is looking an awful lot like this week's Game of the Year. Or maybe this month's Game of the Year. I'm not exactly sure. Let me just remind you, though, that this was just game number 1 in a best-of-3 series. I don't believe that the rest of these games are gonna be any better, but, you know. Only time will tell. Man, it's so hard to make those decisions. Like, it's hard to make the correct decision when you look at the match like we do, right? Like, we're looking at the game and we have all the info. We can see the resources available for both players. But you have to make calculated, well, estimations, right? You have to make a guess as to how much your opponent truly has. And at some point when you play a lot, you do get a general vibe for how much there probably is. You can kind of see the ebb and the flow of the battle, and you can, well, make a guess as to what the opponent has, but it will always be a guess. You never truly know exactly if there's like another infestor that wasn't part of the control group hiding off to the side. Like, you can scan ahead there as the Terran player to figure out roughly what's happening, but it's such a difficult call to make. The fact that Byun decided to hunt down 3 Brute Lords with what was like 9 Marines or so is kind of nutty. Ultimately, I think in the final stages of that game, the real MVPs were those Medivacs. The Medivacs keeping that Terran army standing. I think it's still the most recent upgrade that Terran has added to the game. So that Medivac improvement, the energy boost, that is an upgrade that got added pretty recently. I think it's maybe been like a year or so. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 years. But in StarCraft history, that is that is what we call recent. That energy boost absolutely saved his ass. If it wasn't for that energy boost, it basically doubles the energy regeneration on the Medivacs. I think that game would have been a win for SHIN. There's a million things, though, that could have changed, right? We had that big fight in the bottom right when the Brute Lords initially went out, and I think that first engagement was absolute garbage for SHIN, and then the next one was absolute garbage for Byun. They must have both lost several thousands of resources worth of army there, not really achieving anything. Beautiful. Beautiful StarCraft. Okay, well, what do we do on Ultra Love? Quick triple command center. Quick triple command center 111. What do we do as the Zerg? Quick triple hatchery. Good old Zergling speed. He pulled all the drones out. We're not going for any sort of aggression. Both players are setting themselves up for a very similar match once more. Okay. Hellion production has begun for Byun. Keep in mind that StarCraft 2 players are human. I know this may be obvious for some, but it's sometimes worth reminding. Because of that previous game, there's a good chance that both of these guys are at least semi-fried. Right? Like, this is after already a long game or a long day of playing StarCraft. So this is from the GSL qualification games, right? And you don't like just play one set of best of like, it's not all you get to play. You play upwards of like a dozen games, and if they all look like the previous one, I don't know what the games were like before that one we just had a look at, but it is very exhausting. You gotta keep your head in the match, though. You gotta try your best. Oh, okay. Shin decides to go for a Roach Warren this time around. I liked what he was doing across the board, though. I really think that Shin played a really nice game. It's just that he barely fell short. But, strategically, it's a little different than what we normally see from Zerg players. A heavy focus on Ling Bane. Much later lurkers. Strategically, I think he actually played it correct. The execution of it could have been better. I mean, I couldn't have done it better. Cyril probably could have done it better. But strategically, I think he played that game correctly. And I would like to see more of it. But with such a quick Roach Warren, I don't think we're going to be seeing delayed Hive. A delayed Hive would be a pretty risky play. Generally speaking, Roaches are really good at just trying to not lose to dumb stuff. So if you lose to something dumb, it's generally defendable with Roaches, assuming you're actually in the right position. So it's very common for Zerg players to start off with Roaches and then transition away from them at the first possible opportunity. But this basically is a stepping stone, most of the time at the very least, to higher tiers. Wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see a Hydra then, a Lurker then, straight into a Hive, that sort of shenanigans. Either way, for now, it'll be Roaches. Oh, and you know what? We are going Missile. So Missile is a little bit funky because it benefits Roaches, Hydras, Lurkers, Queens, those sorts of units. Most notably, though, it does not benefit Zerglings and Banelings. And Zerglings and Banelings, I mean, since there's a gajillion of them, usually, when you make them, they benefit from upgrades tremendously. So, yeah, look at these guys. Awkwardly staring at the evolution chamber, wondering whether or not they're going to be able to deal +1 damage for every single attack that they do. They will not. So when you go for a +1 missile research like this, you do really limit yourself for the rest of the game. Obviously, you can go for a +1 melee later on. But usually when Zerg players go +1 missile at this stage in the match, they will double down on missile, although I say that. Baneling Nest is coming up. Infestation Pit is building. Okay. Maybe he just wants to make a push across the map with Roaches, or he just wants to play this defensively. One thing to note as well is that at this level, you will generally see the pro gamers clicking on each other's units. So when Byun goes across the map, he will take just a split second to click one of the Roaches and see what upgrades they have. If you see +1 armor, you know, and like +1 armor and then no missile, you know that it's probably melee upgrades together with Carapace. But if you see +1/+1, you probably assume that the opponent is going to go for a more timing attack-oriented style. It's a bit funky, though. Yeah, Baneling speed is immediately coming up together with a Hive. Okay. Combat shields. Researching. No surprise there. What we do have, however, is barracks 6, 7, and 8 off of just 3 command centers. Byun is going for a 3-base all-in. He could build up a 4th command center behind it, but generally you build the 4th command center before those additional barracks. And this means that Terran is going for a very committed push. And that honestly may be the reason why Shin decided to go for this exact style. He's going Ultras, Vipers, Adrenal Glands, I guess? Either way, I think he went for 1/1 Roaches, mostly just to defend an 8-Rex push from the Terran player. I think that explains it. He's specifically countering this build order here from Byun, and it is quite common on Ultra Low. We see this from Terran players quite frequently, specifically on this map, specifically when it's game number, well, 2, and then especially when they've won the first game of the series. If it's a long game, there is a 4th command center now, by the way. I think he must have seen that the Roaches were upgraded, and he realized that it's going to be difficult, but... This is something, by the way, that we never really saw before the most recent StarCraft 2 patch. Back in, I think, December. Maybe January. I don't know. Ultras after Roaches feels funky, but Ultras now have the opportunity to push units around. Oh, one little Zergling got crushed by the cooling tower. Normally, Ultras would get stuck behind the Roaches. Nowadays, they can push units around a little bit easier, and they'll actually get to the front. I think maybe Byun recognized it, though. I didn't see the Ultra Cavern, but he knows that this is a likely switch. He's tightening up the playing field a little bit. It does mean, though, that the Blinding Clouds are also extra scary. Ooh, that is a brilliant engagement here for Shin. Shin wants to trade out some of those units as well, so he can replace them with Ultras. Roaches are nice and all, but I don't think he even lost any of them. No, he lost one Roach. He lost one Roach this entire game. He's trying to lose them right now, man, but he can't even do that. Yep, Byun was preparing to play against Ultras, tightened up the playing field a little bit, but then took the absolute biggest Blinding Clouds that he could ever take. And immediately Shin is smelling blood. Yeah. Wow, that actually was one of the worst case scenarios, I think. If you're playing a 3cc 8 Rex all-in, I mean, he did make a 4th command center on the back of it now. Mules got biled down, fresh out of the sky. Very cool. Very cool. And obviously now, right, Parabomb? Yeah, Parabomb, maybe Abductions, all of it would be sick. Right now, Byun is not in a situation where he can transition to Ghosts. Like, it's too expensive, man. You kind of need to have a 4th command center up and running to make that decision. So, same for Liberators. It means that these Ultras are not countered in any way. I mean, Marine Marauder can do the job sometimes. Yeah, and this is Byun. So if anybody is capable of doing it, I would say that Byun is maybe the one, but I mean, he's getting good value for now. Yeah, Ultras are kind of garbage, man, but I think there's enough of them. An Infestor as well, just to make sure that the Terran army can't just keep running the entirety of the game. And even though he can technically kite those Ultras, there's so much eco damage being dealt in the meantime, right? Yeah, still though. A couple Ultras here going for a counter-attack. 4th command center is on the 3 o'clock position. One thing to note, in the most recent balance patch, they also did remove some of the speed boost that Ultralists get. So they're not quite as fast anymore off creep as they once used to be. Either way, this was a clean game for Shin as he evens up the score. Final game in this best of 3 series. We find ourselves on good old Tokamak. I honestly can't predict who ends up winning this match. Luckily for me, I don't know. I was actually a little bit surprised when they sent out the replay pack for this particular GSL Code S. So it's funny because they sent out the replays for the finals and the semifinals on the same day. And then I think 2 days later, they send out the qualifier replay packs for the second season. I kind of thought that 2 days later, when I opened up my email and I got like the notification that Patreon had sent like another replay pack, I kind of thought that it was like the entirety of season 1 in one convenient replay pack. But no, it was already the qualifiers for the second season done. So I haven't actually looked at the players that have qualified for this second season, so I don't know. I'm assuming ultimately both Shin and Byun did make it through the qualifiers, because, I mean, they're amongst the very best players in the world. And even though, while they're facing off against each other here in this particular game, they don't just get a single shot, right? They get multiple opportunities to make it through. And I think it's safe to assume that both Shin as well as Byun made it. But anyways, Tokamak will be the final map. Barracks, command center, at 400 minerals, boom, there we go. And then in the meantime, a hatchery, into a gas, into a spawning pool on the other side of the map. Actually, a little bit of a later gas geyser. Hatchery into a spawning pool, into a gas. There's always a little bit of variety from Zerg players. I think when you first start playing StarCraft, it's really good to just do the same thing over and over and over again. You can do the same build for thousands of games. You don't really ever have to change your build order. It's fine. Like most of the time, if you just play the exact same strat, it allows you just to notice any deviations and, well, really minutely adjust as to what the opponent is doing, right? And that's one of the nice advantages of just grinding out the same thing over and over and over again. However, at this level, I kind of like it when Zergs mix it up a bit, mostly because it also mixes up their timings a little bit and obviously allows them a bit of counterplay against something that the opponent is going to see. When you play the exact same strategy every single time, in this instance, the lair will be, for example, slightly different timed, right? If you play the exact timing for the lair every single game, then somebody like Byun is going to be able to exploit it. But when there's always a little bit of variety, it makes it much more difficult for the opponent to deal with it. Now, as a ladder hero, I don't think that's really too important, because you're likely just going to play the same guy maybe once a week, right? Like, playing multiple games against the same person back to back to back is quite uncommon, kind of depending on your MMR. But yeah, in general, for one-off matches, I think playing very rigidly is the way to go. But at this level, I like it when players are a little bit more flexible. All of this is to say, though, that this is a very normal build for the Zerg. I'm making it sound like this is some gigantic difference, but no. This was hatch pool gas rather than hatch gas pool, which is normally what we see from Zergs. Okay, circling speed will still be done by the time that Hellion 3 and 4 are across the map. We're gonna go for good old Hellion Banshee here with a quick third command center as the Terran player. Let's see, where do we go? Good old Stimpak. No surprise there. Good old Roach Warren. Okay. Little surprise there, but nothing all too crazy. So, again, Roach Warren is going to be great for just not dying to anything stupid. Keep in mind that link speed was a bit late here, and this confusion here may actually be due to the fact, okay, that Byun thought that Zergling speed was skipped altogether. So this is what I'm trying to, what I was trying to mention earlier, right? So there's a good chance that Byun will have made a mental note of the exact moment at which Zergling speed finished up in game number 1 and game number 2. Now, game number 1 is a little bit of a funky one because of the pool first. Or at least the quick 6 Zerglings across the map. Now, though, he saw that link speed wasn't done earlier, so maybe he assumed that this was a skipped Zergling speed opener and a quick Roach Warren to basically counteract it, but it was a slight delayed Zergling speed opener, and now, well, he lost 3 Hellions and a Reaper for a single Zergling, and this has completely taken the wind out of the sails here of Byun. These small differences, they can add up very, very quickly. Now Shin is super comfortable, he can do whatever he likes. And what does he like? Creep spread and drones. Yeah, if you don't know what to give Shin for his birthday, just give him some creep. And give him a drone, maybe a Banshee like that. Byun is kind of falling apart here. I don't like this situation here for Byun at all. Additional barracks are now building inside of the main base. Obviously, this is very recoverable, but Shin can kind of just do whatever he pleases from here. And we're once more going +1 missile, we're once more going +1 armor, we're once more going infestation pit, but this is way quicker than in the first game of the series. Like a good, 3.5 minutes earlier. Which is, well, doesn't sound like a lot, but that is more than 50% of this entire game's duration at this point. Oh, careful, careful, careful. Don't want to lose more of your units. And he's going to lose one more, I think. Yeah. It's a very greasy Hellion. Oh, no, Byun! Ugh. Byun stopped running. And this is going from bad to worse right now here for the South Korean Terran player. Terrible start. He still has a really nice economy, and he is going to just try to see if he can play macro on the back of this. So, obviously, when you have a poor start, you can't really do like an 8 Rex all-in. I mean, you can, but the attack is just going to be weaker across the board. 4th Command Center, though, is coming up, and that means that Byun is going to play as defensively as possible. Shin can do, well, any attack that he likes. I wouldn't even have minded it if he decided to target down the Command Center. I think he may have been able to force the kill on it, but he decides to play it safely. Ravagers are coming, though. 1-1 is finishing up soon. Hive is already building. Bailing Nest once more. Is Shin actually going to try and do a big attack here, or is he using these units defensively? We have one Infester. He's hoping for some nice lucky fungals. I mean, Byun really should have moved them a little bit quicker than that. That still had me a little concerned. But okay, second factory coming up. We're doubling up on the supply depots. This makes a Zerg player want to send in about a dozen Banelings, okay? Just to kill the supply depots. Just to giga supply block the Terran player. Like, this is one hell of a wall to be running Banelings into. Okay. Shindo not really abusing this big advantage on him or on his side of the map for anything in particular. He's basically doing the same thing as he did in the previous game, except from a much better position. And the previous game was a massive success for him. Fungal? Fungal? Could have had the Fungal. Oh, maybe he's still gonna have the Fungal. Okay. Once upon a time, Fungal into Parasitic Bomb has always been good. Fungal into Corrosive Bile when the Fungal was still a full root. Rather than a, oh wow. He's killing his own units to make room for Ultras. Really? Yeah, Shin is so comfortable right now, he can just do whatever he likes. Ultrasks are likely gonna get chitinous plating as soon as possible. I say that as he starts up 4 Ultras, but he does not yet start up chitinous plating. There it is. That is the armor upgrade. Makes them way better. And I think when the Ultra spawn or when the upgrade is done, that is when we see Shin go for a committed push. It is going to be an extremely difficult one to hold for Byun. Oh, Byun, this is not the time to move out. Yeah, then again, though, I kind of understand it. He knows that he is... Oh, jeez. He knows that he needs to do something, right? He knows that he can't let this Zerg player just macro unchecked and let him spread creep unchecked and all the rest of it. But he also knows that if he takes one bad fight, he is going to open the floodgates to his own base himself. 2-2 though is just about to finish. And it is a big power spike. New command centers are building. One bad engagement for Shin, and this game is still on track for Byun. I also do think, though, it's important for Shin not to give the opponent too much wiggle room. Like, he's giving him a lot. That medevac is gonna go down. Jimmy tried to gun down a Viper. Not going to happen. Ghost Academy is coming up. I mean, I am still anticipating a move here from Shin. This has been like 6 minutes in the making, is what it feels like. Finally, he's coming across. And is this holdable? Is this holdable for Byun? This commentator can only guess no. I'm inspired by Donnie Vermillion from the Wings of Liberty campaign. This reporter can only guess no. Yeah, garbage fight there for Byun. He just doesn't have the numbers. He just didn't have the stuff. Even though he was near maxed out, no ghosts against Ultras, it's tough. Like, these are definitely the best tier 1 units that Terran has access to. These are definitely like the best tier, I don't know, 1.5 unit, I guess, that Terran has access to. Definitely the best tier 2 unit that Terran has access to. But these are tier 3 units for the Zerg, and sometimes they don't even feel like it. But in the right situation, you really do need ghosts, or liberators, or something along those lines. Well, Byun is trying to squeeze them out right now. Shin doesn't have a ton of money, by the way. Like, he's got excellent creep spread and a lot of bases and all that, but he's not actually a super rich Zerg. In the first game, we saw Shin trying to contain the opponent on like 7 bases. Now he has effectively contained the Terran player on just 4. And at this rate, it is going to soon be just the 3. Big fungals all around. Excellent spellcaster control. Really good army micro here from Shin. He's reinforcing this though. Byun's still fighting. He's got good upgrades on those Marines, and you can tell that they are certainly packing a punch. Okay. Yeah, ultimately that was still 20 SCVs going down. Byun not going down though without a fight himself. 4 more Ultras. This is a big power spike though for Byun. If he can survive until 3-3 is done, he might still be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat. He did make a new command center, so at the very least he's not gonna be stuck on just 3 bases. But soon, Shin is going to send the next wave of Zerg. A handful of Ultras in the mix for this one. Banelings are going to be added as well. There is an Infestor still. It does have energy for Fungal now. Takes 75 energy. Just barely got enough for one. Okay, good corrosive balls there by the Zerg onto the Widow Mines. No planetary here for Byun is insane to me. Honestly, too greedy. I don't understand why he doesn't make a planetary in this spot. He's just gonna, like, bleed out more workers. I think in his mind, this game is already over unless he can actually somehow, some way rebuild his economy. But he is going to pay the price for that. And even though Shin is losing a lot of units, he is going to be able to remax so much quicker. Still though, the Medivacs, man, they were the MVPs in the first game. Now they are once more the MVPs in the third game as well. Infestor gets targeted down. I mean, Shin, he is losing an awful lot of units, but he is sending forth the swarm. Engineering base, by the way, very exposed. There is an animation on them that something is researching, and at this point that can only ever beat 3-3. Shin could target him down, but he does not need to. GG gets cold, and it's our Zerg player who obtains the victory in a phenomenal series of StarCraft 2. Now today, I do want to give a special shout out to the Patreon supporters. If you are interested in directly supporting the channel, you can head on over to patreon.com/LowkoTV. Special shout out to the absolute biggest supporters right over here on the right. We have Blue Hair, Grimdy, Bindsterk, Thord, Javo, Champ, Brusik, Patrick, Gavilan, Andy, Sisitmin, Lightswitch, Lucas, Ballistical, Killman, Robert, Jacob, Echo Soldier. We have Rexstar, Shren, Papuch, Agaring, Crownlord Strategist, Dustin, Nakul, and Doomhome. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Also, by the way, big shout out to the guys on the left. There's a lot of patrons as well on the left side in the little scrolling menu. Appreciate you.